Okay, looks like everybody's in.
All right, great. Welcome, everyone. We are reconvening for the purpose of recording. I'm going to say this is the Western Hills Water District regular meeting of the Board of Directors, Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. It is 5:03 p.m. and we're going to do a quick roll call. Board members, Matthew's here.
Brenda's here.
Zacharias here.
Chris is here.
Mark is here.
Julie, are you
Julie's
there?
here.
All right, great. All right, we're gonna, there's no reportable actions that we're going to report on from closed session. So regarding the motion approving consent calendar, all matters listed hereunder shall be acted upon by a single vote of the board. There will be no individual discussion of these items unless a member of the board or the public so requests, in which event the matter shall be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate agenda item. I, as the president, am requesting that item A regarding the checks and warrants be removed from this consent and moved to an action item. It'll be action item B. So we're going to move checks and warrants to an action item because there's some couple things that we want to talk about on there. So moving forward, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting, January 22nd, 2021, the regular meeting, February 10th, 2021, and the meeting of February 25th, 2021, which you see in your board packet. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, let's move to action items. First, we want to consider the approval of resolution number 2021-04, resolution of the Western Hills Water District approval of expenditures of approximately $76,655.50 of Diablo Grande Community Facility District number 1 Melrose bond refinance proceeds for the payment of immediate expenses. Board members, in your board packet, we know the $50,000 is to cover part of the subsidy for immediate expenses, but we also added lawyer fees and the 2 items for the $1,000 for the website and $1,000 up to $1,000 for the Frontier re-looking at stuff and negotiating, which actually occurred today. So that's what brings us up to the $76,655.50. Do I have a motion to approve that, or a second to approve that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear it. Okay, aye for Julie. Okay. And then now let's talk about the item B under action items that we just moved there, the checks and warrants. So when I was looking through the board packet and we were looking under expenses, there is some serious concern that I have regarding gas bills and for the fleet vehicles. There's just some things that I'm just not right now able to put my head around, and what I'd like to do is, before we approve the checks and warrants, I would like us to form a committee made up of Julie, our treasurer, Mark, and myself, if the board would approve, to look into these expenses and a possible remedy that we can come up with, a policy or something on how we can really have a better oversight of how the trucks are being used and the costs that we're seeing incurred via gas bills specifically. Does anybody want to chime in on this, or are we agreeing to maybe have us all look into this a little bit more closer?
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to also be part of that, since it falls under operations, which is kind of my realm.
Yeah, the Mark and Julie have been kind of working on this
Okay.
currently, and myself. So that's why the 3 of us, we kind of these numbers kind of came up in a conversation that we were having regarding this issue. How about if the three of us work and figure out first what's going on, and then I can relinquish to you and the three of you guys to take it from there. But since I'm kind of wrapped up in it, we can't have three board members discussing it. So for
Correct.
Brown Act issues, myself, Julie, and Mark will just kind of finish up what we're kind of thinking, and then I'll toss it over to you, Linda. Is that cool?
Okay.
Definitely want you involved.
Yeah, I think-
Julie,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I think that would be good if that Linda can take over after that. Just we can kind of finish, going over some of the things. Just given the gas prices are going up substantially, so we just had a few things we wanted to go over, and other things, like inventory on all this stuff too. So we kind of know, because I see things coming up possibly that will be paid off in the next 2 years, and
Yes.
we were hoping that would be a good thing, and
Yes.
and we had trucks that still ran.
Yeah.
So
Perfect. So, but yes, Linda, we will definitely, I will toss that off to you. But because I'm kind of involved right now, I gotta finish up what we're doing, and then I'll
Yeah,
definitely
no problem.
toss it to you, 100%. Okay, so motion to approve Julie, myself, and Mark at first to finish this up, and then toss it over to Linda as soon as we're done.
I'll
Second on that?
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Awesome. I also want to discuss one other item in that resolution. Yeah, we went a little too quick. Is Jerry on the line?
Yes, it should be.
Jerry, are you there?
He might be muted, so hang on a second.
While we're trying to get him.
He's unmuted now.
Yep.
Cool. Hi, Jerry. One of the expenses in the 76,000, 655.50 that we approved, and it needed to be approved. But I just want to get some information on it. Actually, wait a minute. David, quick question. We actually didn't want to approve this certain amount. There's a bill for $7,600 that we want to hold off. How do we redo this? My apologies. My brain is on water rate studies, everybody, and I'm a little off my game tonight on this regular stuff. David, are you there? David?
Hang on. He's muted.
Have we given him host?
Yeah, I asked him to unmute.
Okay, cool.
There you go. Go for it.
Hey, David. I blew it on this one. How do we redo our vote on action item A for the resolution? Because we want to take 7,600 out of that temporarily and not approve it, or at least request the board not to approve it. Can we do a do-over? Is he still muted?
No, but maybe he's having connection issues at the moment. He has no video.
All right. Well, we're trying to figure out how to do it. Let me explain something. And Jerry, are you there, Jerry? Can he hear us?
I don't know. He's not muted. Technical issues, maybe.
I know he's on his way to the airport, and so he's driving. Jerry. Okay, so if Jerry isn't able to answer us, let me just explain with $7,600. We had a water leak up on California Oak, and Jerry requested some immediate ability to get the situation taken care of, find out what was going on, and granted him that. The bill came to $7,600 though, and we need some explanations for that. And I don't know if Jerry can communicate to us, but what I am proposing, and the board can agree or not agree, but what I would propose is that we ask the company that was used to do this work to itemize out what they did, what they used, their equipment, billable hours, that kind of stuff, so we can understand as a board what equals $7,600 in this repair. So the consideration and approval of the resolution 2021 of the refinance bond money, the 76,650.50, instead of approving that number, I would like to subtract 70. Is it, guys, was it 7,500 or 7,600?
75.
75. I'd like to subtract the 7,500 out of that and only approve, Crystal, what's that number? Here I'm doing it 76,655.50 minus 7,500. I'd like to just approve 69,155.50. And we'll wait to pay the $7,600 bill until we can get a better itemizing of what those costs incurred.
I mean, I would be open to that. Is it just me? I'm not even seeing David here in the call anywhere. Am I just missing his name?
He called in, he's having technical difficulties. He did
He's
call
having-
back. I
Oh,
unmuted him, but it looks like he dropped off again. So let's
Oh.
see what happens.
So 69,155.50. So I don't know how we'll have to do the redo. We want to, all in favor to scratch the approval of 76,655.50.
Rescind.
Rescind that. There we go. We want to rescind our consideration for 76,655.50. Do I get a second of rescinding that?
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay,
Aye.
now we want to make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-04, resolution of the Western Hills Water District, approval expenditures of approximately 69,155.50 of Diablo Grande Community Facility District 1 Melrose bond refinance proceeds for the payment of immediate water district.
I think what we need to do is amend the resolution and approve the amended resolution.
Okay. Do it. Let's amend it.
So it's, yeah, you just have to state it formally, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So
So we
Linda,
need someone who's quick with math then, huh?
yeah, quick with math and quick with numbers. Can we do the amendment? Where's David? David, we're lost without you, man.
David, we need you.
Might we want to take care of this at the end of the meeting?
Wait, are we able to
Um,
proceed?
No, we can't do
No,
that.
I think we need to do it immediate. My apologies, guys. My
That's fine.
brain is on overload with water rate numbers, which we will be getting to shortly.
So is it just 75 flat? 7,500 flat?
Yeah, it's a $7,500 fee, but we really don't, there's some questions to what was charged and why.
Right.
There was only one line item.
Okay, so I'm getting an email
Quick
from
math
David.
brings up, the math I'm doing brings up $69,155.50.
All right,
That's
so
what
we
I
want to
got.
make,
I got that too.
all right, so we want to make an amendment to,
I make amendment to resolution, on action item A,
Yes.
a consideration of approval of the resolution 2021-04, a resolution of the water approval to approve an expenditure of approximately $69,155.50 of the Diablo Grande Community District Melrose bond refinance proceeds for the payment of immediate water expenses. And this is an amendment to that resolution.
I second that.
All right, I have David on the line as well, Matt.
Okay, great. And I seconded it, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. David, did we do it right?
I hope so.
Thanks, Dave. All right, so now we're going to move forward in reports. I am going to take these reports quickly out of context because I want to give HF&H consultants all the rest of the time of the board meeting. And I don't want to have to jump to reports of directors. So I'm going to put B first, report of directors first. Mark, could you give us a little bit and the community a little update on where you're at with the audit you're doing, and just so the community knows what's been going on, and just give a little tidbit to the community?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Matt. I did do a field trip today with Chris Blessings and Linda Kuipers, along with Ray Smith from Easy Networks, to look into the charges of our Frontier bill, which is in excess of $3,200 per month. And we went to all the pumping stations and to the main office up at the processing plant, and have learned a few things right now where I believe potentially we can reduce that cost significantly. I don't want to give any numbers out at this point in time because I need to consult with Ray as far as what his actual opinion is as far as redoing the Frontier bill, as far as what they're charging us. And what this system does is the pumping station communicates with the main office up at the processing plant to give a status as far as what the pumping stations are doing. We may have to make some investments as far as upgrading the computer at the pumping station, but I think in the long term we can save a significant amount of money over the long term, in excess. I'm estimating over $2,200-$2,300 per month, but that's just a guesstimate. I don't want to say that's firm. That's just a rough estimate as far as what we see so far. I'll wait until we get Ray's final report. As far as the rest of the audit, I have received all the past statements from Wells Fargo for all accounts relating to the Western Hills Water District, and I'm in the process of auditing all wire transfers that have occurred for the past several years regarding all expenditures, specifically expenditures that came out of the Mello-Roos bond. So I'll have a better feel as far as where that's at the next meeting, but I'm not sure if I'll have anything to report on until I actually run my final report that I present to the board prior to releasing it to the public. Other than that, I think I'm getting a pretty good grasp as far as what's going on financially with the district, and we're doing a lot of things to clean up matters as far as reducing our costs. So that's basically where we're at right now.
And Mark, I have a question. Since our consultants are going to be presenting rates tonight, and it has a lot to do with our budget, and it has a lot to do with the bills that we do pay. As you're going through this, I know that the Frontier bill, we might save a little bit of money here and there, but that's going to take some time to figure that out. But can you give any kind of a statement to the community that you're not, are you or are you not seeing anything gargantuanly like, the rumors that have said, the Western Hills Water District has embezzled money, or they're stealing money and this kind of thing and that kind of thing? Is there anything that you can just help the community understand, that when they're hearing the rate study tonight and the numbers that Rick has been using and Gabe has been using, these are real numbers from our, these are bills that we pay, they're real, they're legit. There's no funny business going on. Is there anything you want to discuss on that?
I can tell you so far, based on all the investigations I've done with the bank accounts and the accounting systems, that I haven't found any theft. But I still have a lot of work to do ahead of me. I'm not saying that there is, but based on what I see, I don't think theft has occurred. But I would like an opportunity to do a thorough forensic audit as far as the finances. I feel really good about what we're doing currently as far as trying to keep this district together. I can state to the public that, folks, this is a lot of work. I mean, we are spending a ton of hours trying to straighten all this stuff out and to get this water district in a manner that's operating, quite smoothly, and trying to hone the process the best we can. There have been a lot of anomalies, but nothing that stands out that I can see so far.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mark.
And Chris, anything you want to update or anything you have to say to the community on anything from a communication side?
No, we're still working on the new website. A little bit of a snag with getting the payment situation together for that. But as you know, we're working on that. So we're pretty much in a small holding pattern there while, we just continue to make sure that the videos get online on time, make sure announcements go out on time for meetings, and make sure the community's engaged.
Great. And Zechariah, regarding the website that you're building for the Western Hills Water District, how is that coming along?
Really not a whole lot more to add from what Chris already said. We were in a little bit of a holding pattern. We are going to be diving into it. I was planning on actually beginning last night. I was having some technical difficulties with my laptop. We'll be candid about that. So I will be diving in and beginning, and I'll keep everybody apprised as how things move along. But
Yeah, and
right
just
now, nothing of major substance to report.
all right. And just so the community knows, the Western Hills Water District has never had a credit card. So everything has been paid by check. And as you all know, the way the world works now, when you're trying to build a website and you have to buy a hosting, fee or something like that, they don't take checks. It's got to be by credit. So Mark is working with the bank on getting the water district a credit card that will be used for these type of expenditures that are approved by the board. So it won't be in a credit card to use for whatever. It's based on approval from the board, but it'll be one card for the district to use. All right, Linda, do you have anything you would like to add? I know you were on the trip today.
Yeah, I was on the trip today. It was really good. We have Jerry did a great job showing us all of the pumping stations. And then when we got to the treatment plant, we had a tour with Mike, and he was phenomenal in teaching us how the water comes into the system and how it goes through the filtering systems and then gets into the tanks, the various tanks, because we have one that we mainly drink out of, and the other ones go for like waste, and how he explained all of that and how that works. It was really enlightening. And last meeting, I was asked to do something to kind of tell the public about our staff. So while I was there, I talked to some of the staff members to ask them, ask their permission if I took a few pictures of them and the pictures of what's going on around there, get a little bit of information from them for what to do. And so a presentation will be coming forward. I didn't want to do that now because right now we're doing the water rates, and that was the first priority for us. But very shortly we will have a presentation on our employees and what they do.
Awesome. Excellent. And then Julie, anything you would like to add?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I don't think so. I did have a question on maybe for Linda or Mark or Jerry. But when they went up today, they're looking at the pumping stations with the Caterpillar, and I had noticed that lease, and I was just curious as to whether or not that's something that we're going to own here in a couple of years.
And just to jump in there, our water consultants will be discussing probably that, because the Caterpillar, that's the generators, correct?
Yeah.
Am I right? Yeah. So I believe we have about 11 months left, 11 to 12 months left, and then we will own those. And that's going to be in the study tonight. So that will be answered, and you will get your answer of that in the study, I'm sure.
Okay, excellent. So
Yep.
that's really all I have to report.
Awesome. And just for the community to know, Julie will probably not have a whole lot to report on because she is like stealth. She is our stealth bomber. With her being in the real estate and the bond side of things and the liens and the foreclosures stuff and all of that. Those are things that we talk about in closed session. So she does a lot of talking in the closed session. And so the community, you probably won't hear a lot from Julie in the open session, but don't think that she's not working, because she's working, and she's working a lot of hours. I'm telling you, she doesn't stop working, and I am so thankful to have her on the board. And even though you don't hear a lot from her, just know she's doing a lot of work, but a lot of her work is what we talk about in closed session. And you guys just aren't going to hear about that right now. But just know that she is working, and working really, really well.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Okie doke.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're going to move forward now to point C, point A. It's HF and H consultants. We have Rick Simonson and Gabe. Gabe, I lost you, so I don't know your last name. I'm sorry. Are you there? Gabe Sasser. Sasser, is it pronounced Sasser? So both of them are going to be taking over, and they're going to be discussing to you the water rate study that we began last August, September, somewhere in that time frame. And there's going to be a lot to hear tonight. There's going to be a lot of numbers, got a lot of information. Please understand that at the end of their presentation, there will be an opportunity for some questions. But I also want you to know that we're coming back next Wednesday, and the consultants will be back with us next Wednesday. And we are going to have more of a town hall question type scenario. So when you're going through the presentation tonight, if you will write down your questions on a piece of paper, we're going to take a few questions tonight, but the board is going to be hearing this from the first time. Myself, David, and Rick and Gabe have been working on this for quite some time. But the board as a whole will be hearing about this for the first time. And we might not be able to really give you good, solid answers. We might be able to answer some things, but some of it, we're going to ask you to come back next week. And we would like for you to email Chris Blessing questions, not paragraphs, a question, 1 or 2 sentences, but a question. And if you could email those questions to us, we're going to correspond those questions together. We're going to get the questions out to Rick and to Gabe, to David Hobbs, to all of our board members, and we'll have a week to hear what your questions are and have good answers to give you in next week's session. And then, of course, there will still be, an opportunity to ask more questions in next week's meeting. But if we can do it that way, we're going to be able to give you really good, clear answers. So tonight is a listening night. Tonight is to hear the consultants, take it all in, write down questions that you have. We might be able to answer a few of them tonight, but please forgive us if we say we're going to get back to you and answer next week on that. We just want to make sure we're getting you good, solid, factual information. So that's how that's going to run. And with nothing more to say, we're going to hand this over to Rick and Gabe.
Great, good evening, and thank you for having us. I think I can share my screen to go through the slides. Is that possible? Let's see.
Yes, sir. Give it a shot.
Yes, you
All
do.
right, I think I have permission. Just let me know. Let's see.
It's working.
All right, you can see that cover slide. Excellent. Well, good evening. I'm Rick Simonson. I'm a Senior Vice President with HF&H, and I have with me Gabe Sasser, who's a Senior Associate with the firm. We've both been assisting the district over the last year with looking at your current rates, the revenues you are bringing in, your expenses you need to cover. Let's see if I can move this slide. So tonight we've prepared about 12 slides to run through. First, I'll let you know a little bit more about HF&H and our firm, kind of the purpose of this meeting, and also what this meeting is not about. I think that's important to understand as well. Give you a little background on the district for those of the public that might not be as familiar with the operations. It sounds like Linda could give a water system 101 class after the field trip today. So I won't go too deep into that, but I will also talk about your current rates, the structure of those rates, and how much revenue is being generated by those current rates, and compare that to your revenue requirements. What are your expenses? And not only for this forthcoming year, but also for about a 5-year outlook. And from that, some proposed rates at the moment. Again, these are preliminary results. These are not rates that we're asking the board to adopt tonight. We'll look at bill comparisons. What are the current rates, not only for the forthcoming year starting July 1st, but again, 5 years out. And then there is a unique situation here at the district with water banking revenues. The district not only receives revenues from the residents using the water, but also they can sell some excess water. So we'll talk to you, the board, about what we've assumed in the study so far and how they could be handled in the future. Then we'll open it up for questions and discussion after. So quickly before I talk about the purpose, again, I'm Rick Simonson, Senior Vice President with HF&H. About 5 years ago, we were asked by the district to take a look at your rates as well. That was at a time where your then current developer was engaged in the process. We're looking to set some rates that the developer would share in some costs. Unfortunately, we weren't successful in kind of finding that middle ground. And so rates over the last 5 years have maybe increased just slightly, basically to keep up with inflation. So we're kind of in the same position we were about 5 years ago. And then unfortunately, when we started this process last year, we thought we had a new developer on board that would be very engaged and helping out as well. But that appears not to be the case. So some of the numbers you'll see today are much different than we thought a year ago. The full costs of operations are really being on the shoulders of your current 595 or so connections. So the purpose of this meeting, again, as Matthew said, just to inform the board and the public at large about the rate study, the process we've gone through, and kind of the results. What are those preliminary results? And really just to facilitate brainstorming, thinking about some of the information that you can come back to us with them questions next week. Let this sit in for a week so you can facilitate those questions. And get some information tonight from the board about their comments, their concerns, or some questions that we can get answered tonight. But what tonight's meeting, again, is not about, just so the public understands, this is not a final result of a rate study where we're asking the board to adopt certain rates. That is not part of the process. There's a full state mandated Prop 218 process that requires months of preparation. So we're not coming to you today asking you to adopt any rates. So just a brief background on the system for those that may not be aware. There's about an 8-mile steel pipeline that conveys the water from the State Water Project through Kern County up to the water district, to the 595 homes. It can handle about 2 million gallons per day of treatment. That's quite significant. It's a nice facility. You do currently have a storage tank of about 20,000 gallons. So all together, with the water storage tank, you can accommodate about 750 connections. You currently have about 595. With some upgrades, you can increase that storage and increase the number of connections you can have, because the 2 million gallon per day treatment plant can accommodate much more than 750 connections. But currently, as is, about 750 connections. And there are distribution pipelines to each of the households throughout the district. And you have maintenance and operations where you have an efficient district staff that maintains these assets, manage the district's finances, and provide customer administrative support. So I do want to touch on, and we'll get to this really in the last slide, but another component of this overall system is you have this water banking and revenue component, where the water that you do receive is determined annually by an allotment by the state, and that's really based on how much water they think will be available based on snowpack. So you are provided an allotment each year that changes. And then when available, you can sell whatever excess water you have from that allotment, because you don't have a lot of connections that need typically as much water as you're allotted. You can sell that. And you get revenues from that on an annual basis. But it varies from year to year. It's very unpredictable in the amount of that. So it's hard to put that into the rates. You can't always tell if you're going to receive the monies that you have assumed. So what are the current rates? You have a simple rate structure. You're primarily the 595 households. Previously, you had the golf course that's no longer drawing water. They were planned commercial grocery stores, other facilities. But right now you have a simple system where your residents, each parcel pays $100.69 per month as a fixed charge. Then as they use water during the months on a monthly basis, they pay $1.49 per 100 cubic foot. 100 cubic foot is about 748 gallons of water. In addition, there are some irrigation meters with the HOAs and the COAs and other areas that they also pay for the water that they use. And that currently is being charged at a rate of $5.10 per HCF. And there are some raw water customers. Well, there were. The golf course, the vineyard were being watered with raw water, but that's no longer the case. So some observations when we start looking at rates is how much revenue are you getting from a fixed source, which is your service charge of $100 per month. You're getting about 78% of your revenues from that fixed source. And since most of your costs are fixed, that's a good percentage. And that gives the district the high level of reliability that those revenues will come in and not fluctuate from month to month as the usage charge revenue will. So you'll see throughout this presentation, we've recommended sticking with that kind of split between service charge, which is fixed, and the usage charge, which is variable, to keep that revenue reliability so you know the monies will come in. One thing we also notice, and I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, but the current revenues are not meeting the current costs of the district. And not only are not meeting the current operating costs, but there's not a little left over to help build reserves, which can be used during emergencies or to help smooth in future rate increases. So what do your current rates generate? So there's a lot of numbers on this slide, but I'll just focus on some of the important items here. On row 4, you'll see that's the residential, the 595 connections that currently pay $100 a month, plus $1.49 for the usage charge each month. We've averaged and projected that next year you use about 71,759 HCF. And this is based on looking at the last 3 years and looking at the average water use per household. It varies from year to year. So this is a projection based on 3 years worth of information. And we did do it on a per household basis because we know there's been growth over those 3 years. So we didn't just average the totals. So that's where the significant revenues come from, about 855,000. And then some of the other connections with the HOA and the COA with the irrigation of the medians, there's additional revenues coming in, but grand total about 926,000. And I've highlighted here in the projected usage column, you'll see the green there. Those are the golf course and the vineyard meters where they still have the meters there, but no water is coming through. So in the past, there was about 200,000 100 cubic feet of water being used by those individuals, those meters. That equated to about $800,000. So when the golf course, the developer was paying that bill, you were bringing in about another $800,000. That's no longer the case with the golf course no longer being operable. So total revenues coming in about 926,000. Well, how does that compare to your expenses? Now, I think this slide tells the whole story, maybe not provides the detail, but at a glance you can see the stacked bars here represent your expenses broken out into many different components. Really the largest component is there on the bottom in the red, that's your water purchases. When you're allotted the water, you're paying about $1.2 million a year for that water. And then again, you have the water banking revenue that can come and offset that. But from the get-go each year, you're paying this 1.2 million for the water. On top of that, you have some O&M costs for the staff to operate. Utilities and chemicals there in the green are another piece of the revenue requirement, and G&A costs with the dark blue there. And then capital costs or other debt service. So in the small light blue, you have about 100,000 in typical maintenance and repair projects on a capital basis. So that's minimal. But what I want to point out there is the orange, this equipment loan. It's already been touched on. There's 2 loans, one through Caterpillar for the 5, what was that, I have that here, it just now escapes me. The generators.
The generators.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you, Gabe. That's what I have Gabe here for. He always jumps in and corrects me. The generator packages with a SCADA system and some transfer switches. That's the main one. It's about $450,000 a year. That will be paid off by the end of the fiscal year 21-22, about May of 2022. So you see it there for the current year 2021, and most of it there for 2022. And then you also have a second loan for 3 Ram trucks that is also included in that orange, which will be paid off in about just at the beginning of fiscal year 22-23. So you can't really tell on the slide, but there's a little bit of orange there on the top of the 22-23 stacked bars. So historically, these were paid by the developer. Now that's not the case, so they're here in your revenue requirement. So stacking up all these costs, and I should mention, in the out years, we're inflating these costs basically by CPI. So you see a gradual increase over the next 5 years. But we counter this with the black solid line there, and that shows the roughly $900,000 coming in from rates and some non-rate revenues such as late fees and other fees that come in. That's well below the top of those stacked bars, as you can see. So I've kind of highlighted there in red that this gap from about 1 million currently up to about 3.5 million when you include those loans that you're paying off, those are being covered in another way, not from rates. It's being subsidized in another way. And that's what we're facing, trying to get the rates up to the $3 million or so threshold. So it's a significant increase in rates, as you'll see in future slides. So a little more detail on the information and how we developed those costs that got reflected in the stacked bars. We start with the district's 19-20 budget, because we started this process last year, so that was an adopted budget, about 3.63 million, and we adjusted that as follows. As I mentioned, we had some inflationary adjustments, some general inflation, 2.8%, assuming benefits would increase 8% per year over the next 5 years, salaries and wages about 3%, utilities about 3%. One other thing we noticed in the total district budget, we cover other services such as your sewer and maintaining the storm drains. So those costs are not covered through water rates. So we removed about $700,000 to $820,000 over the 5 years each year. So we're left with just what the water rates need to cover. And again, I want to point out, and you'll see there on the equipment loan repayment loan equipment loan repayment line, for this current fiscal year, about $483,000 to pay off those loans. Next year drops to about $437,000, that $4,798 to pay that last payment or two for the Ram trucks, and then you've fully paid off those loans and your revenue requirement drops. So what does that mean to cover this new 3.5 million, which again includes a full year of repaying those equipment loans? What would that $100 service charge need to increase to? That would be $390 per month per resident. And an increase in that dollar, The charge for your usage each month would increase to $7.39. And again, this maintains that ratio of covering your fixed costs at 78% and 22 coming from the usage charge, maintaining that same relationship. So this is obviously from the $900,000 revenue you'll be generating up to 3.5 million. That's why there's a significant increase in these rates. And again, and I'll show you when we get to a 5-year outlook, the paying off of the equipment loans is about $61 a month. So you'll see once those are paid off, that fixed charge can drop by about $61 a month. So what does that look like over the next 5 years? So beginning July 1, 2021, this year, to fully cover the operating costs that I showed on the previous slides, again, we would increase the service charge to $390 per month and the usage charge to $7.39. Then beginning July 1 of 2022, that service charge can drop by $337 or by $52, sorry, to $337 since most of the loan will be paid off. And then progressively, it's about a 2.4% annual increase in both those rates, the service charge and the usage charge, from 23-24 through 25-26, just to keep up with inflation. So what does that look like on a typical bill? So we know during the year you use different amounts of water. Typically during the winter, you're not irrigating as much, if at all. So you have lower bills, which can be what we're calling here a low water use month, when you use less than average. And here we chose 50% less of average, so about 6,500 cubic feet for the month. Your current bill in total would be about $110.38. Under these rates for 21-22, beginning in July, using that same amount of water will increase the bill to $438. And then we've shown the impacts of the next 4 years. And again, pointing out that that loan payoff amount will drop off. That's not part of the line 2 fixed service charge that gets escalated each year by CPI. And we've presented here since, again, during summer, you may use more water and be a high water user, or you may be a household that continuously uses just low water. So we presented here just a range because your bill does change from month to month. So the more water you use, of course, those bills will be higher. And again, we don't all use the same amount of water all year round. It fluctuates month to month. So how do you compare to others? We always get this question. It's very difficult. You're in a unique situation, but we tried to cobble together a few examples of what others are paying nearby or that are smaller districts such as yourself. We looked at the average water use and also high water use bills that other communities pay. And there's no way around it. Not only your current rates tend to be on the higher side, but what we're showing you tonight is obviously higher than what you see in other communities. Now to touch on the water banking revenue. So we've had some thoughts. Typically when you have an alternative revenue source coming in, you like to have it be something that's fairly stable, that you can help reduce that net revenue requirement that you need to generate from your rates to help kind of buy down the rates. So what we've produced in the slides prior is we assume zero water banking revenue comes in. So that's what I would consider kind of the worst case, if you receive zero water banking revenue. However, we know if we look back at years 2011 to 2019, on average, you've received 500,000. So can there be a mechanism? First, there's options of how to deal with this water banking revenue. First, you could bank on these revenues coming in and set your rates lower now, assuming you're going to receive those revenues. I'm calling that a buying down of the rates. And for every 100,000 you kind of pledge towards buying them down, saves you about 10% on your rates, which right now is about $31 per month. But of course, this presents a risk that the actual water banking revenues are less than what you put in with the buy down in the rates. As you can see, in year 2015, it was only 141,000. What if you had bought down $300,000? Or in 2014, there's always a reconciliation. There's a potential that there's some revenues that have to go the other way. So this is a bit of a risky proposition. And B is you can provide credits on bills when the actual banking revenue is received. So as soon as you receive, for example, in 2019, if you received the revenues of $964,000 at that time, you could divide that by the number of households and divide that by 12. And for the next 12 months, refund those monies or credit those monies on then current bills that they're paying. So in effect, buying down the bill, but only when the actual revenues have been received and you're not making a guess of what you'd receive. Also, you can save the water banking revenue, as many communities do when they have alternative revenue sources, is they consider that frosting on the cake and they just put that into reserves. I think you're in a bit of a different situation. That's probably not the best use, in my opinion, of those because of the high rate increases, but maybe looking at a combination of doing all three. So maybe pledging some percentage of the water banking revenue to put into a reserve account, and some of the water banking revenues to be credits on bills, and possibly even buying down a portion of the rates. So that's what D and E are about, is thinking through some strategies on using those in different ways. So just to be clear, what you've seen prior to this assumes no revenue is coming in from water banking. But of course, we know you will receive some. We presume you will receive some revenue, so that needs to be discussed on how that will be handled moving forward. So with that, I didn't get anybody interrupting me with questions, so there may be quite a few out there. So I'll stop now and open it back up to the board for questions.
If I can interject something for the community. It's absurd for us to discuss this with the mindset that this is a water bill. Because I hear people say, what in the world? How, $390 for a water bill? The reality is this isn't really a water bill. It is us as the homeowners taking on the subsidy that the developer is not paying. And so I want you to seriously go, none of us are trying, none of the board members, nobody, not even the consultants, are trying to tell you that your water bill costs $390. That's just not the facts. The fact is we have to make our water bill and our rates pay the subsidy that is not getting paid by the developer. And so moving forward, everyone needs to sort of get in their mind that this, when you look at this as, my God, I have a $390 water bill, you just want to like shoot yourself in the head. At least that's the way I feel about it. But when you start thinking of it as an investment to save our homes, it's an investment that we're putting into our community so we can stay living here, so we don't lose our homes, that water doesn't stop coming to our homes. It's more of an investment. Then it's a water bill that has an investment side to it. It's really understanding the full picture of why the rates are so high. So I just want everybody in the community to not just, I can see it on social media. My God, we have a $390 water bill. No, we don't. Unfortunately, we have a subsidy bill that we as a community are having to pay because we have a developer that's in breach of contract and they're not talking to us about paying it. So just keep that in mind when you're digesting these numbers, because that's the only way I've been able to stay sane over the last 2 weeks working with Rick and Gabe. My sanity level has just been focused on, this is an investment so we can keep our homes and we can stay living in this community. And so anyway, for what that's worth, just don't look at this as a water bill, because then you're going to lose it. And I don't want anybody losing it.
None of us do.
Right. Okay, so can we dump or do you need to refer to the screen answering questions? Because it's easier for us to see, or at least for me to see the people raising hands and stuff on without the screen share.
Yeah, I'll relinquish that, and if I have to bring it back, we can accommodate that.
All right, cool. So Krista, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look for the community to raise their hands. And when you raise your hand, we will see that your hand is raised. And again, we will try to answer your questions. But again, next week will be for questions also when we've been given a chance to digest this ourselves and look at your questions. Maybe you can, again, send them to Chris. But if anybody has questions currently, go ahead and use your raise your hand item, and we'll start taking questions. Does anybody from the board want to start off with the question? Oh, here we go. Dawn. Krista, can you, yep, there you go. Hi, Dawn.
Hi. I just, a quick question. Right now, is $100 or just a little over $100. But I know that my water bill usually is in the about 100, just a little less than 170 when you factor in the usage. So I guess what I'm hearing then, if we go up to the 390 and you throw in the extra $70, we could be paying up to $450 a month.
So
Am I hearing that right?
yeah, let me just jump in, because your 170 bill averages in the $55 for your sewer charge that we're not talking about tonight. And because these numbers have come back the way they have, again, this will be a full board's decision. I'm not making the decision myself, but I'm going to speak from my own personal opinion. My personal opinion at this point is to not raise the sewer rates an additional $20. And with the money, so currently the sewer money that you and I and all of us pay comes into the district, and we have a deficit, as you can see tonight with these numbers. That sewer money has been paying essential bills that have to be paid. If we approve these rates, then all of that subsidy will be being covered and paid. So now the $55 that each one of us pays for our sewer fee will actually be able to go down to the city of Patterson and start paying that. Now, granted, the city of Patterson wants $79 right now, or 76 or something, and we would still only pay the 55. So a deficit would continue to happen, but then that's where myself and Julie are going to be talking to them to try to renegotiate that in the days and weeks ahead. So I still think we're in a good spot for negotiating, because number one, we will start paying our bill again starting in July if these rates succeed. But at the same time, we're going to try to get those sewer rates not to go up, but to come down equal with Patterson. That would be my hope. So yes, to answer your question, but just understand that 170 includes the 55 sewer. So the numbers that Rick was talking about, the 390 plus whatever your usage is, then you got to add in your sewer of 55, whatever it is, $56, and then also the storm drain of $5.
Okay,
That's
thanks,
correct.
Matt.
Let's let MP, I think, was next. If we can let MP in.
$55 less than what I have.
Hello, we can mute Don again.
I don't think it is what's up to that to do.
All right, MP, we see your hand. You should be able to speak. The person on Zoom that's titled MP, we've unmuted you. You can speak.
Think he might have some microphone problems.
All right, we'll come back to you. So let's mute him and bring up David Sotelo.
Wait, hang on. MP remuted himself. Let me just try one more time. MP, can you respond? No. All right.
All right, so he'll
Carmen?
continue to work on that. David, go ahead. Oh, wait, first we got to unmute you. David Sotelo.
I think Carmen was next in line.
Oh, there's MP.
Okay,
MP,
MP's back. Oh, he's trying to call?
He's good with the hand signals.
Oh, yeah, wow. MP, are you trying to use your phone to dial in for audio? Right. We're gonna leave you on the list, but try to
No,
get
I
your
think he's
audio.
using sign language.
Oh,
Okay,
oh.
I can see he's using sign language.
Oh,
Yeah,
Do we
see,
have-
he's saying yes.
Do we have a sign language interpreter?
Is there anyone who could volunteer?
He wants to
Um,
know if there's a number to call. I'm not an interpreter, but I can read some of it. He wants to know if there's a phone number he can call for someone who can translate for him.
Tell you what, Linda, tell him not at this time, but we're gonna look into that. But if he could,
He has an
type out his-
interpreter.
oh, he has, looks like he has
Oh,
an
he
interpreter. Oh,
he
he
has
just
an
needs to give the
interpreter.
number to that interpreter.
Oh, it's
Okay.
on the agenda. It's on the agenda. If the agenda that was posted here, let me
I have it.
got it.
Okay. It's 1-669-900-9128.
Okay, great. So when they call in,
Wait, he's,
our board secretary will allow them in. But here, listen, if you can't do this, put your question in writing, email your question.
Does
There's
he know
no
where to-
chat. He's saying there's no chat, so he
No,
can't
there's no
type.
chat.
No,
yeah.
no. Email Chris Blessing. Email him your question and we'll answer it next week in the town hall meeting.
He needs the email address, I'm sure.
Can you provide it?
Yes. MP, it's my name, Chris Blessing, WHWD @gmail.com. Or alternatively, if you want to post on Nextdoor, I can pick it up there probably too, or just send me a message on Nextdoor.
All right, thank you.
He got it and said thank you.
Great.
All right.
All right, Carmen's next in line, just so you know.
All right, Carmen, let's unmute Carmen. Well, David's unmuted, but let's do Carmen.
Okay, this question that would be for Julie Davis. I know she has a lot of experience on the real estate. So my question is, how this?
Carmen, this is about the water rate study. Are you asking a
Yes,
question
yeah,
regarding the water
yeah.
rate?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So how this water rate increase or out of pocket for the residents might affect the value of the homes? It's possible to sell homes telling to the potential buyers that the water bill average it's about $300 per month plus HOA plus. How will affect the selling the homes or the price of the homes?
Well, I couldn't guess exactly how it's going to affect every buyer, but I'm pretty sure it's going to have an impact, in my opinion. I mean, I know the market is pretty good right now in general, but it should be a heck of a lot better up in Diablo Grande. But unfortunately, it's not. And we, just because of what's been going on, and there's no development, there's no customers, there's no golf course, there's no clubhouse. And that's beyond the residents' control. So yeah, I mean, from a real estate perspective, I can only guess, but how many people want to pay a $400 water bill?
So you think that the prices of the house, the house will decrease a little bit, right?
Well, I mean,
So
Might, of course.
wait, can I jump in here? This
Yeah,
isn't a session for real estate 101. I'd like to
Yeah.
keep this focused on the water rates. If you'd like to talk to Julie about selling a house or what the rates are going to be, you can talk to her directly, but let's keep this on point for the water rate.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to David Sotelo.
I just have a quick question. I talked to Linda last meeting about discussing what's going on here with the water board in California, directly the drinking water department. And I'm just wondering if anyone's gotten in touch with them, and would they be able to help us out with what's going on financially with what's
So
happening?
your question, we were going to ask at the answer at the end in the questions
okay.
provided. No, but that's okay. David, can you go ahead and answer David regarding your experience with what he's asking about?
Yeah, I think as far as I understand your question, there is a provision that was enacted a few years ago that gives the state water board the authority to step in and order what's called a forced consolidation of struggling water districts. We've looked into this. I don't know that it applies to Western Hills because the legislation really only applies to disadvantaged communities, which we don't have. And then B, I don't know that fixes the problem of the water as it pertains to water rates, because just for example, if they ordered a forced consolidation of Western Hills Water District with, say, the city of Patterson just for water and sewer services, the legislation doesn't allow our subsidy or the difference between our cost of service and our revenues to be passed on to other ratepayers. So as I understand it, they could force consolidation, but the Diablo Grande service area would have to sustain its cost of service up to 100%. So I don't know that would have any ability to lessen what the rate's going to be.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah, just the person that I talked to was basically meeting with y'all and just seeing if there were any other solutions. So just wanted to make sure that we're checking out all opportunities and all options that are available to us. But if you guys have looked into it and don't feel that that's a benefit to this community, that's all I was looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. All right, so Steve Stockmall. Hello, Steve.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much for everything tonight. And I have a couple of different comments. So Matt, hopefully you can kind of follow along and then address accordingly. So from what was discussed previously of an approximate 2x increase, what I'm looking at here tonight is more like a 2.5 to 3x increase. A couple of comments to that, and then I'd like you to speak a little bit more to how long this loan is for. And I guess I'm looking at this as, okay, if it's going to go up to say $470 for me, that would be for approximately a 2-year time period, to which it would then go down to $410. A couple of things along, I guess a couple of comments along that would be, and this is going to briefly take into consideration what Carmen was asking about and what Julie was talking about. Even if our water bill does, or the overall bill does go to $470, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, yes, that's a lot more, I think, than anybody wants to pay. But I'm going to go back to what I've said before. feel free to move to Tracy. Feel free to have an $800,000 mortgage. Feel free to be at the beck and call of PG&E. So I don't like it, no, but if that's where we're at, then fine. The other thing I want to ask, Matt, is in my understanding, I am hearing that Jim Miller is no longer with Angels Crossing. How does
Correct.
that affect your negotiations with them to potentially resolve some of this another way?
So first to talk to you about the 2 times. So the last time, and I think it was you that asked where we were in the water rate study earlier. And when Tracy and myself started the ad hoc committee back in August, September of 19, I think. Or no, was it 20? It was 20. The numbers had a budget in there for Angels Crossing of like $720,000 or $750,000. So Angels Crossing basically said, oh, this is the budget that we want to spend for water. And so Tracy took into consideration that amount. And that's where those original $200 was going to be the base rate, because that was based on Angels Crossing putting in 700, and I forget what the number is now, 720, 730, something like that. So when we had to redo this earlier this year, we had to take out that budgeted number. And that is why now we're around 3 times the amount, because that 720,000 that we were budgeting in had to be removed because Angels Crossing isn't paying anything. As far as Jim Miller, well, I don't see how Jim Miller would have really anything to do with the negotiation side for us. I mean, we need a developer to come in here, pay their contractual obligations and start developing. I mean, that's what all of us want as a community. Nothing more, nothing less. Our responsibility for the water district is to get the water district in line, so to speak. We have done every single thing that Angels Crossing has blamed us of not doing. We've been doing. I mean, we have Mark doing auditing. It's been to this stage, we haven't seen any kind of theft, fraud, or anything else. Sure, is there high bills that maybe we can lower by, $100 here, a couple $100 there, maybe 1,000 with this whole frontier issue? Sure, that's what we're doing. But as far as lowering our costs, I mean, our costs are our costs. Again, we might be able to, like with this frontier and the bill is really high, even if we take Mark's number of $2,000 and we lower our bill $2,000 a month, that's pennies compared to, off of what we're going to be paying. Yeah, it's a rounding figure for a lot of districts. So yes, we're going to continue to try to lower prices everywhere we can. And we're going to try to bring accountability to the district every chance we get. The board members are working overtime and not getting much sleep trying to do that. There's just so many hours in a day. We all have our day jobs and we're working as hard as we can. Where Jim Miller fits into this, I mean, he was here for a year.
It may be a moot point. I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, right. But Jim is what I'm understanding is Jim is no longer working with Angels Crossing.
And then I guess my final question, and I'll let the next person in line get their time. The final question would then be if this doesn't happen, or if this is not approved, or whatever words you want to use there, what happens then? What's plan B?
I can tell you, I mean, transparency, guys. If the subsidy does not get paid, I mean, even though we're borrowing $50,000 a month, that's still not paying the subsidy. All the sewer money that you guys put in is paying a portion. The $50,000 is paying a portion, but there's still debt that's not getting paid for. There's still bills that are not getting paid for. Ashley completely sits down with Jerry and myself and everybody else, and we all go, what needs to get paid so we can survive another month? This water rate study is showing every single bill, and it's everything except for sewer. And the sewer, I just explained how that's going to work. But at least we'll have money going to the city of Patterson on that regards. When we go in to negotiate, at least we show that we're starting to pay our bills again. But if the subsidy does not get paid, there isn't going to be a community in about 8, 9, 10, 11 months. I mean, you can't not pay your bills and expect to survive. And I mean, it's just the God honest truth. There's no way of sugarcoating this. It's not the Western Hills Water District's fault that we've had 2 developers, one that quit paying a year and a half ago, and that same one tossing us over to another organization that doesn't have any money in the bank and is not paying. I mean, we're unfortunately, and all of you as the community members, it's not your fault. We're just trying to figure out a way to save our homes, to keep water coming to our homes so we can continue to survive as we then move down the road with other things that we have in mind that I don't want to discuss because they're legal in nature. But there is a plan A, there is a plan B, from my perspective on how we survive. We can survive as the Western Hills Water District by a miracle, or we can survive with bringing another entity into it that we could maybe be taken over by. And I'll be talking about more of that later as we get down the road. But both plans, whether we survive as Western Hills Water District or we survive by another water entity taking over, both we have to pay our 8,000 acre foot water subsidy and be able to pay the water because the entity that would be taking us over is not going to have their other customers pay our water bill. We're going to still have to have the brunt of it. So unless a developer comes in here with real money and starts developing, the only way to bring these rates down, also with water banking revenue, but besides that, the only way we're going to bring water down is by development. Whether it is more homes, whether it's a hotel, whether it's the golf courses start going again, getting somebody in here just to buy the golf course. I mean, if we get a $700,000 or $800,000 a year budget with a golf course water, that's going to bring our water bill down. But development is the answer to bringing the bill rates down. It doesn't matter if we survive, whether it be merging with another entity or whether we actually are able to pull this off and stay the Western Hills Water District. Either way, we're going to have high bills until development happens because that's what put us in this place to begin with, no development.
I have a quick question, which may be something that maybe the community is thinking as well. So how does it work if we begin to pay the subsidy? Basically, is what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to shoulder the subsidy ourselves as homeowners in this community. If we set that precedent, and then let's say down the road, a couple of years, something like that, a developer comes online, comes in here and decides to begin building. How does that work then? Is there going to be some sort of language in whatever we do that will then roll that subsidy back on a potential developer so they can take that on again until they are able to scale and able to bring in that revenue with all the connections, so on and so forth? How would that look? Is there any sort of fail safe that we can have or any sort of language in there that would help bring that about?
Zechariah, it's a good question. I feel like both Matt and David would have to speak to that personally.
Yeah, and it's a question that we've all asked as well.
Let me add one more thing to that question. The real rate reducer in the future is more connections, those people paying bills,
Correct.
just like we are. So a developer coming in is probably not going to be so keen on picking up a subsidy that doesn't currently exist anymore.
Correct.
But if they build 200, 300, 500 homes, then, you know, we can all pretty much cut that bill down by 40%, 30 or 40%. That's how, it's just my understanding of it, I should say.
I think one of the easiest things to do is, and this is all determined on Angels Crossing because they currently are the owners, but if we could get the golf courses working with, somebody who buys the golf course and just runs the golf course, and that's it. They're not buying the entire phase one. They're just buying the golf course and just get the golf course going. And then the water revenue just to water that would help tremendously. Then we can look at, the 69 lots up on the hill, people buying homes and the land and building homes, getting a developer to build some, whatever. Those are all great ideas, and maybe it needs to be done in pieces or whatever. But
Well, I sure hope they're shopping this golf course around, because it's going to take a real golf course restorer and developer to get it going again.
correct. So there's no easy answer to any of these questions. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation that we have had two developers now, and to give World its kudos for some part, for what was it, 12 years, they did pay their bills. They did pay the subsidy. They were doing what they could. They just didn't develop, which is a question and a concern to mine. Why didn't they? It doesn't matter. They didn't. Angels Crossing's a whole nother deal. They haven't paid anything, nothing, not a dollar, nothing. So they don't, I don't even know, I can't even put them in the same category as World International as far as that goes. But we have to have a developer that's going to build. That has to happen. And that's the only way our rates are going to come down. That is a reality. Go ahead, Rick.
If I may, many communities face this where they establish a developer impact fee of a connection fee. The current ratepayers have been maintaining a system that will allow future connections. You have more than enough capacity. So typically what they do is they have a connection fee, be it 10,000, 15,000, that ends up being part of the price of the home as a developer develops these parcels. So you get a big chunk of monies right away before they connect and start paying the bill to help reduce what current ratepayers have been paying for all along to maintain that capacity for them to connect. So that's another way. And I don't know the specifics within the district with how everything was set up, if you would be barred from doing that, but I don't think you would be.
No, but the problem is you still have to get a developer to build those connections.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a really good point,
I
Rick.
guess my question
yeah.
was kind of twofold in that, speaking of a prospective new developer, that even with this current developer, and I guess this could be something more for closed session, we can discuss options or whatnot, but I would certainly not want to expedite a way for them to begin, not that I actually believe that they're going to develop, to be honest with you, ever. But we certainly don't want to make it easy for them to begin whatever they think they're going to do.
No, and as I stated,
as we shoulder the burden.
right.
And I know that we kind of touched on this before in previous open sessions.
Yes, and as I stated to the community, when we eventually bring this forward to a vote by the end of the month, 31st approximately, when we as a board have to mull this over, there is going to be language to reassure the community that we are going to make every effort to hold accountable Angels Crossing and World International. We've already, as a board, rescinded the assignment and assumptions agreement. We've done that, but that doesn't mean anything until it goes into a courtroom. So we, as you know, have been discussing those things. And so we will be doing whatever we can legally. And we will not stop until what I've used as justice, whether it be civil justice. We will do what we can to hold these people accountable. But we're not going to just sit around and let them benefit by our money paying their subsidy. They're in breach of contract, period. They agreed to this. They agreed to pay the subsidy and they're not doing it. And it's putting us all in this horrible situation.
There's a lot of people with their hands up.
All right, so let's move to Cliff Gerard. Hi, Cliff.
Hello there, Matthew.
Hi.
First of all, I won't want to waste a lot of time, but when we came up here, we offered to buy the place. We offered to buy the water company multiple times. I don't have a problem with the water bill going up. At several times, I invited the president of the board, and when I say several times, over 3 or 4 years, to come down and look at a development we did where they'd had developer problems, come in and look at what it was. I wasn't going to get them to go to Florida where we did another one, but the same problems. We brought in a developer down there finally after 2 or 3 developers. And, this is not an easy thing to do. We do have problems up here, but I know that I think it was David Sotelo asked a couple of questions about the water board, offering things. The state will come in and do certain things. I've tried to get a hold of you several times and I don't seem to be able to. So this is a good point. Anyway, I applaud what you're doing, but in order to bring somebody in here, we've got to get the intermediate developer world out of the picture. One of the things that really bothered me is my wife had attended a meeting and brought home a list of the financial people that were involved with Angels Crossing. We have a relationship with Angels Crossing in Vicksburg, Michigan. And I know Angels Crossing here has been trying to buy their name. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. What I did was I took the list that my wife brought home of all these people that the Whitley Group had raised money for. And magically, none of them, and I'm talking about Tykert and all these other people, and one of them, a local company here, had never even heard of them. But in the meantime of doing some due diligence, I guess you can probably figure out we were in the venture business. What I did discover was a document that came from World actually was being used in Reno, Nevada. And son of a gun, Don Hale was involved. Anyway, I guess I'm kind of rambling, but I think the thing is, there are things we can do up here. And I think that, let me be specific, and I think a couple of questions were answered or asked a couple of minutes ago. One of the things that happened when the people in Arbège de Sur decided to, well, we'll go ahead and pay the, the uplift here because we don't seem to have a choice. What happened there was their home values went up almost overnight, $200,000. These $600,000 homes are now selling for $1 million, $1.4 million, $1.5 million. So, trying to beat up some developer and put the wording in that they'll pay it. Oh, I think it was Zachariah that brought it up. Anyway, there are ways of doing this that are very creative and help everybody maintain their homes. And, we're all together in this, maintaining the homes up here. My wife happens to love it up here. I'd have been gone a couple of years ago, but it's really a chance for us to take the bull by the horns and show people that, we're a self-sufficient community. And I don't know how to say it, but, I teach leadership at Stanford, and I also teach board development, but typically the bigger boards. And, I say, it's always doing the right thing for the right reason at the right time and with the right people. And I think if you nail the whole thing down there and throw away all the textbooks and everything, we'll get the developers in here. They're not going to come around and, do what Seth did and try to build everything with the community. They're here to build homes,
right?
Get people in here to buy them,
Yes.
and to make connections. So Rick Simonson and his group is right. everything's going to be the number of connections you get. Most developers, and we realized at a time, there was a fellow up here working with Sherry, Patrick Garvey, I think it was. And the thing he told me was, you know, we need 3 tanks. Okay, that's fine. That's part of the cost of doing a development. You're going to find real developers are going to come in here and say, what's it going to cost us to do that?
All right.
And they're
Well,
going to make.
Cliff, I appreciate everything you're saying, and I think you're speaking for a lot of people right now, and I just appreciate it. But we have a lot of hands up, so we're going to continue to move on. But thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, let's go to Mark Swisher.
Yeah, just a couple questions. I didn't see in the budget for these rate hikes any types of attorney fees, and it sounds to me like what you're moving forward with your plan and what you approved today would have additional attorney fees required.
So if we can, you notice how we're always borrowing money from the refinance Melrose bond area. If we can get the subsidy coming in to cover all the bills, then that frees up some of that money for the attorney fees in moving forward.
But that's still not, I mean, it's still owed money, right? I mean,
Yes, that is still a debt that will have to be worked out. That is correct.
Next question. I thought the conversations around home values was very valid. I would challenge the board to think bigger. If we do rate hikes like this and it diminishes our home values, the likelihood of a developer coming in here to develop $200,000 homes and do the things that you want them to do to save, I think is probably not a reality, right?
So I have a question. I have a question on that because maybe you can help me. Wait, I have a question about that because the board is open to hearing any and all suggestions. So if we don't raise the rates to where we're paying the 390 base rate, and so let's just say, let's call it a $500 water bill, 450, 460 for some, but let's just say a $500 water bill. If we're not paying this, we have no houses in 8 or 9 months. So that means your house will be worth not even $1 in 8 or 9 months. I mean, because water's not going to come if we can't pay for water. So paying the bills, even though it's high, paying those bills are what's going to keep us surviving for another day, which will then at least keep our homes. Maybe we'll take a hit a little bit on the homes, but at least we'll have our homes. And once we get a developer in here to start running the golf course or build more, our values will go back up. But I mean, at least we have a fighting chance the way I'm seeing it. Do you have a different idea or opinion on that? Because I'm open to hearing it.
Well, Matt, if you let me finish, I was going to tell you that we need to look bigger. We need to look at other options. And if we need to take 390 or 400 on for a short period of time, it's understandable. But there needs to be a plan that brings that rate down outside of a developer. And we got to think more along how we market this location as part of this decision.
I think a lot of
Go ahead, Julie.
I think a lot of what Mark's asking is there are a lot of things that are going on in closed session.
Yes.
I guess I could say that, Mark.
Yes, absolutely.
To just, you know, because as I'm listening, I really don't, I mean, you know, being on the board here, I don't really, and I understand Matt's position. I really don't like telling people, you know, if you don't do this, we're not going to have any water and you're not going to have a home. I tend to kind of think a little bit differently in that we're going to just deal with what's thrown at us. We're just going to deal with it and figure it out. I don't, you know what I mean? I try to be a little bit more positive at what we can maybe come up with or what can happen as things come along. But I agree, like with a new developer coming in, I do think that there's a couple things. If they come into a development and they say, well, if somebody's paying $400 a month for water, how are we going to sell homes? It's going to all depend on the market at the time, what they can do. If, you know, maybe something to do with the golf course, maybe some income. There's a lot of factors that are going on, but the bottom line is a real developer that has real cash and access to money is going to have a little bit better time figuring that out and coming to the board and the homeowners association and trying to work things out, just like they were talking about the gentleman giving the presentation. You know, we've talked about like hookups, things like that are and this is all progressing, because even today is the first day I've seen this presentation, so I can tell you, you know, my hair's on fire. But
Yeah.
you know, there are a lot of things going on, so we're kind of being hit with this at the same time, the whole board. So, you know, we're not voting on this tonight, obviously.
Correct.
So we're all working together. So if the community has other things, but just know that, you know, that's what we're working on. And so, you know, everybody be glad to talk to anybody in the community.
Yes,
Yeah,
we will.
And Mark, just so you know, we're not saying we're raising rates and then not doing anything about it. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that we aren't going to discuss in open session. But for us to be able to fight those fights and do what needs to be done to live another day, the rates have to get paid, the money has to get paid, the bills have to get paid. We can't keep doing what we're doing and expect to survive. It just doesn't work that way. And nobody likes this. I don't even like it. My hair, Julie's hair is on fire. Mine, you haven't heard our conversations in these last couple of weeks with Rick and Gabe and Dave Hobbs, and just working on these things. These numbers are not, nobody's happy about these numbers. But we're not giving up, but we don't want to see these numbers stay here. But there's a lot of factors that have to be dealt with. I mean, Angels Crossing is still the owner here. I mean, we talk about developers coming in, but there can only be one developer at a time when you have an owner who owns the land. So we have to deal with all of that before we can start talking a new developer coming in. We have a developer, they're just not paying, they don't have any money. So we have to work on all those issues to be able to get another developer here.
But let's also not discount the, you know, potential for money back from the water banking agreement.
Correct.
And of course, you know, it wouldn't be hard to project for a developer, hey, this is what the water rate would decrease to if you commit to building X number of homes and connections.
Correct.
Maybe if, like we said, somehow, I know all of us would love this. I would love it if someone would come fix the freaking golf course and get it operational again. I would pay to play there as much as I possibly could to help support it. We would all use the facilities. I know that for a fact. We all used to. And so if something like that could happen, that's another increase, another revenue stream for the water district, and a big one at that.
But even saying that, the Angels Crossing still owns those golf courses. So
right, they'd have to sell it.
Yes, or other means that we're working.
So this is part of what I'm talking about. So we're talking about, hey, get the golf course back open. But we learned over the summer that the rate that the golf course pays for water is substantially higher than we pay for residential water. Are we willing to renegotiate that rate with the golf course to get some income?
So
would we negotiate the rate that as it is today?
Yeah. Rick, maybe you can answer a little bit. I'm not sure you can, but can you help the folks understand how the water price difference is and why it is that way, so we could, like, because I get his point on that. It's a good one. If a developer is coming in here to do a golf course and the price of water is astronomical, why would he want to do it? You know, so how do those rates change or fluctuate if somebody wanted to come in and run the golf course?
Well, if I'm understanding your question correctly, well, when we set rates, it's got to be the cost of service. So A golf course would be using raw water. So the price on a per 100 cubic foot or acre foot would be less than the treated. They don't have to go through the treatment process. So how much water they use will help pay some of the bills, but really it's still a cost of service for the treated water coming to the residents. But they can cover a lot of the fixed costs. So it would help bring down the treated water rates to the residents. But how exactly and how much, that just depends on, year to year what they need.
I think too, if I may interject real quick, Rick, that Mark is referring to the alleged large cost per acre foot of water that the prior golf course owner was paying. And Matt, I don't know how much we can speak on that. Maybe Mark could speak on that.
Or Dave, actually, because remember, World did some things a little different.
Can we talk about that? Because I'd rather just say it if we can.
David Hobbs, can you explain what was in the mind of World International?
No, I think I don't even need to get into that. I think the simpler explanation is that to answer the question, the water district can't negotiate a rate for the golf course that, let's say it's less than the cost to actually provide that water to the golf course, such that the balance of that is then paid for by the remaining residents. Prop 218 doesn't allow for that.
Right.
And that was one of the issues that came out in our early conversations with Angels Crossing representatives, is that when they were looking at what our rates were, they wanted to cap what the total golf course water costs would be in a year, and the remainder would be pushed on the residents. And that's not supportable by law.
Fair enough. I think I was kind of leaning towards that. And I'm sorry, Mark, that I'm getting all tangential on your question, but I really wanted to talk about, if we can, and I'm asking this to Matt and you too, David, I guess, what World did with regards to golf course water rates.
I don't know that I understand I think that there's a question that Mark is working on as where some of the revenues that were paid to Western Hills were either an advancement on the loan versus water versus what the water costs are. And that's just something that needs to be figured out on the accounting side.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Is that what you're getting at?
Mark, can you help
Chris,
us out?
Yeah, let me help break it down here. I can tell you, based on the graph that I presented last time, that over a 10-year period, World had contributed in both water costs to the golf course and water subsidy close to $22 million. And on an average, the amount of money that they had paid into for water usage on the course, on average, was about $700,000 per year. So that is a significant amount of money. So when you take away the golf course being closed and you take away the subsidies, it's a lot of money. It was, if you do the math, about 1.8 million per year.
Well, again, Mark, sorry to cut you off. I'm just trying to keep this as succinct as possible. The rates that World International was paying Western Hills Water District, do you recall that table?
I'd have to go look up the rates. As I recall, it was about, the last rate that they were paying was roughly about $1,700 per acre foot. I'd have to go look at the report and see.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about right.
Yeah,
and
but I
you
can tell you over a 10-year period, that had gone up about 3 times.
Exactly.
3x the amount.
That's the point I'm getting to.
Yeah, and that, you take in consideration that at the time, World International controlled the water district, i.e. Guillermo, Carmen, and her husband, Doug Kearney. Why they voted or allowed to have those increases, I don't understand that. All I can say that it's a fact that those increases did happen. They allowed it to happen, obviously, because they controlled the water district and the board through the board. And why they did that, I don't have an answer or to. It's a mystery to me.
That's exactly what I was getting at. Thank you.
And we don't want to state our opinion on that matter because we have to just leave it as it's a fact that they did it and what their reasoning were.
Well, I
We
got
don't
one
know.
more thing to say for Mr. Swisher. So it's really a false narrative about the overly expensive golf course water. That was self-imposed, all right? So whatever going forward, a developer would come in here, a golf course developer, presumably, and David can correct me on this, presumably they would already have a clear picture of what raw water costs are to the district and what our charges are going to be to them to provide that raw water. And that's it. I don't have any idea what that number would be, but based on Rick's comments, it's cheaper than the treated water.
Correct.
And I don't think we're paying $1,600 an acre foot for water at home, are we? Well, maybe we would actually. I'm not quite sure how the math will work out on that, but my point being that it's significantly lower than the last self-imposed rate of $1,700 something per acre foot that World put into place via their water district board. So I hope that helps answer. I know it's a long way to get to that answer, Mark.
Yeah.
Those numbers are not correct, put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the next water board meeting, if the board will allow me to, I'm happy to present the actual data to the community as far as how the rates were and when they went up at certain periods of time. I do have a spreadsheet that shows all that.
Beautiful. That would be awesome.
Perfect. Yep. That'll be for April. All right. Let's move on to Owana.
I think it's
Or is
Catherine
it-
Whitney is next.
Oh, Catherine Whitney. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Hi, can you hear me? You can.
Yes.
Yes.
I need to apologize in advance. I did miss the beginning of the meeting and I formulated my question and you may have already covered it. So I know that water is a very, very valuable commodity in our state, and we have many farmers in the area that are always trying to negotiate for water. Is it an option to sell the water that would be used on the properties that Angels Crossing owns to help pay those subsidies? I did hear you refer to something regarding water banking, and so I'm not sure if that's what you were referring to, but if you wouldn't mind taking a minute and kind of going over that again, I greatly appreciate it.
So just for.
You want me to handle that one, Matt?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So in the past, the issue has come up. Basically, Western Hills pays for more water than it has a current use. Initially, back in 2010, it's moving water around in California is obviously complicated. The short answer is that option was looked into years ago. It requires Kern County to approve, because that water can only be used in an authorized place of use. And Kern would not allow the district to sell that excess water and move that water around. As a result of that, we essentially sell that excess water that we have to 5 member districts of Kern County. And to the in a certain manner of speaking, we do sell excess water as it is. The other point to make is that we're continuing to look at that to see if that is a potential solution to solve the district's long-term problems. But I don't know that solution in and of itself is going to be the saving grace.
Can I put a little cherry on that too, David?
Certainly.
Just wanted to bring up the point that we spoke about in my first presentation about the state water project allocation percentages. So many of you know, I hope you all know by now, we're in contract for 8,000 acre feet with Kern. And if you go and look at the historical or the current SWP allocation numbers, you'll find that they are set at about, I think right now it's currently 10%, if I'm not mistaken. that means that we only get 800 acre feet, which
Aren't
is,
we at 5%
did it
allocation
get,
right now?
did it get revised? It does get revised, so it's possible.
I think we're at 5%.
So that's 400 acre feet, which is, I don't think that's quite sufficient, is it, for the community's usage purposes at this point?
Right,
So
so-
I don't want to get into too much discussion about that. What I want to say is that we don't get to sell off the difference between what we use and 8,000. We get to sell off via water banking the difference between what we use and our allocated amount, which was 800 and is now 400, which probably means we're going to end up having to buy water from another banking situation, if I'm not mistaken.
State of California.
So one of the things I want to mention is, Angels Crossings always was like, we're going to renegotiate. The 8,000 acre feet is the worst contract in the entire state of California. I just want everybody to understand that is not the worst contract in the state of California. It's actually a really great contract if we were built out and developed as planned under the phase 1 plan. So what makes it bad is the fact that we have not built out. That's what the problem is. It's not the 8,000, because we'll never get 8,000 acre feet to use. It's always
California.
like what Chris said is the allocation. So we pay for 8,000, but we're only allotted maybe 400 or 500, depending on the allotment amount. So if you were to shrink the 8,000 and let's say down to 4,000, let's say we win and we convinced Kern that we only want 4,000 and we had a 4% allocation year, all of us would have dead lawns because we would not be able to water our lawns. We would not be able to do anything, and we'd be conserving water like crazy because we would only be allotted the 200 acre feet or what have you. So it's very important that that 8,000 is not looked at as this horrible, worst contract ever, because it's not.
It's not excess. Yeah.
It's not. What's bad about it is we've never had a developer develop this place to its full potential. That's what makes it bad. Just to let everybody understand that.
Absolutely. Hope that answers your question, Catherine.
Thank you.
All right. Who's next?
We got David again, David Sotelo. Go ahead, David.
Thank you. Just a real quick question, just to clarify. I believe you all have answered this already, and it might be something that cannot be discussed except behind closed doors. But because Angels Crossing owns the whole area, we as not as individuals, but we as a group can't go shopping or a golf course, a company to buy the course or more developers to come in. Is that what I gathered from y'all? That you guys are working it out to?
So let me kind of put it this way. You own your home and I don't like you as a neighbor. So I go and try to find somebody to buy your home from you. And I find somebody that I like better. And I tell them, I want you to buy this guy's home. It's kind of one of those situations. It's a delicate situation. Angels Crossing owns Diablo Grande phase 1.
Well, I think what he's asking is, as residents, can they start looking
You can
for
bring someone
ahead.
to Angels Crossing,
Yeah, you can invite them to visit. Like I could invite somebody that I want to buy your home to meet with you and see if you'll sell it. I mean, sure, we could do that. But the bottom line is Angels Crossing owns the land.
Right, that's what I was just trying to figure out. So, no, but we don't have a group that's like actively courting other companies to say, hey, if this happened, we'd love to have you into the, we've got a golf course, we've got two golf courses that they need a lot of work, but if we could get you in, would you be willing to buy this? That's what I'm asking. Is there any type of committee that is actively searching for companies that would be interested in the future?
Yeah, so David, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's not the responsibility of the Western Hills Water District.
Understood. Okay, just that's what I needed to know.
Right, but would I advise like homeowners, all of us, to somehow create such a committee? Well, sure, homeowners can do whatever they want. But that doesn't fall under the, the Western Hills Water District doesn't get involved in that kind of matter.
Okay.
Well,
But I think it's a great idea.
If I may interject, I know that we have community members currently who are involved with real estate in various forms.
Mhm.
And I know that they love this community. And if they have any sort of power or any sort of pull at all, I would venture to say that they're probably already actively talking to, and this is a real guess on my part, but I would venture to think that they're probably already actively talking to their counterparts to say, hey, maybe you should go talk to Angels Crossing and see if, maybe you could help them out a little bit.
Right. Well, it sounded like Cliff Gerard was a very active in that type of thing, at least from his comments earlier. I don't want to keep you. There's other people behind me. That's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Dave,
All right,
there's gonna
thanks,
be a lot
David.
of
Thanks,
stuff
David.
that'll be public record.
What did you say, Julie?
What I'm saying is there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be public record at some point.
Mhm.
And absolutely, I think that what David's talking about is that if there are people or they want to form a committee or they want to do anything or contact people, I say absolutely everybody could get in there and do what they can. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be a great idea.
And this goes back to the gentleman, I forget Mark or forget the name, but when he says that, looking bigger picture, that's where we're a community and we're going to have to save our community in many different ways. And the more people involved in, again, trying to find a golf, Truant Golf or something that would want to come and maybe buy the golf course portion, maybe Angels Crossing would be willing to sell it to them. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But I
What's
mean,
kind
yeah.
of interesting,
And
my
the good
opinion
news is, and the good news is, we know that as soon as that sale is made, that Angels Crossing would immediately turn around and pay the district the money's owed, right? Oh, wait, do we believe that? I don't know.
No comment.
Julie, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, just on a couple things, there was nothing that would have prevented Angels Crossing from doing something with the golf course as far as leasing it or having somebody maintain it and actually pay for water and run it. And, just on another note, I do know people that do own a golf course that is fairly local, and they've said business has never been better. So it's a little bit frustrating that, we need a customer for water. We have a golf course that we're looking at that's dying. And
Well, I have to say it's a perfect COVID sport.
it is. Yeah. So.
All right, so let's move on. Oscar, am I in the right row,
Oscar
guys?
is next. Yep, Oscar's next.
Go ahead, Oscar.
How you guys doing today? I'm just new to the neighborhood and I was wondering, is there a possibility that us as a community can start our own developer? Start buying lots and building. I mean, I'm willing to invest close to $250,000 on something like that. And I'm sure I can get more of my friends to do as well, because the main problem we're having is development. And the more movement that the community has, it's going to attract bigger developers to start investing money into our community. So just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, so you're right. You're spot on. And anyone who wants to invest in the development of Diablo Grande is encouraged. However, you need to be very careful who you're giving your money to for that development purpose. And I will just leave it at that. Again, I could see someone coming to Angels Crossing and saying, hi, I would like to give you a bunch of money to help you develop. I would just say, I would just encourage you to look at the different websites that are out there regarding saving our community, and just be very careful who you invest with, and make sure that when you invest your money, you're investing in the right place. That's all I'm going to say on that issue.
I'll just kick in real quick, Oscar, that, residents can do anything they want. If they want to band together to do something and it's legal, then absolutely. Like Matt said earlier, it's not under the purview of the Western Hills Water District, but I also echo, do your due diligence. That's the thing.
Or your money might go bye-bye. All right.
Is that all? Are you all good, Oscar? I guess he's good.
He's good. He muted.
So Fonda's next.
Doug? Oh, Fonda. Hi, Fonda. Wait, can somebody, there we go.
Okay,
Hi,
can you hear me
Fonda.
now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So now my question, because and Oscar kind of touched upon what along the lines of what I was thinking. So instead of giving the money to the water district, why don't we give it to like the HOA and do some kind of development, maybe a connection? We do connections for different homes and then they sell the lot so that they're already connected. I know when I searched for land, I only looked for land that already had some type of connection because I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I think the lots would move a lot faster if some of them were already connected. So instead of spending $300 for the water district, why don't we each pay $300 a month and pool it together and start putting in connections at these different lots? That's one thing. The other is that can we get a breakdown on the sellback and the banking of the water? And then, and can we pay the sewer directly to Patterson? I'm not understanding why you guys are collecting it and passing it on. Can we just pay directly?
So let me answer those questions, starting with City of Patterson. According to the contract that we have with the City of Patterson, we are the billers for that. That is something that we will be trying to negotiate. However, there's a problem with LASCO getting us to switch, and you would need the City of Patterson to agree, you would need us to agree, and then you would need LASCO to agree. And that is a huge process. So according to contract, the Western Hills Water District bills for this. But I can't agree with you more. I would like to see that get changed, and that is definitely something we will be looking into. As far as I'm not quite understanding, no one here has asked the community to pay the Western Hills Water District any type of investment money for any types of property. So maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but the bills we're talking about tonight is so we can pay our bills. And I don't think the HOA, because I'm on the board of that, would have any ability to collect a bunch of money to put water meters or connections in land owned by Angels Crossing. I'm not sure any of that
So maybe,
really.
maybe it needs to be an independent homeowners group then that may be formed, like an investment, something like what Oscar stated, and start doing connections for these lots, and the lots will probably sell a lot faster. Something else needs to be done, because what you're talking about doing by raising the rates, that's just a patch job for now. And if we're talking about sustainability, I would rather my $300-400 a month go towards improving the lots and making sure that they sell.
Well,
So
Ms.
that's what
Fonda,
I'm saying.
Ms. Fonda, I think you need to remember that those lots don't belong to either the HOA or the Western Hills Water District. They actually belong
But
to
then
Angels
that's
Crossing.
That needs to be something that maybe needs to be negotiated.
Okay.
And
well,
I'm willing to put my money towards negotiation of getting these lots built out. That's where I'm focused at.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay. Alana, I believe, is next.
Good evening, everyone. A couple of questions for you. So this proposed rate increase, this doesn't actually include the $17 million that Western Hills Water District actually owes to Angels Crossing. Is that correct?
that number is in dispute. And the 17 million does, according to the contract, does not get paid to Angels Crossing until the Western Hills Water District is solvent. Money is in the reserves, and we're operating for 8 months in the plus.
18.
Then a agreement can be made between Angels Crossing and Western Hills on a payback for that.
Okay, thank you for that. So it also does not include the money that you currently owe to Kerner Patterson. Is that correct?
That's correct. No debt. This is just moving forward, paying the bills. Correct.
So this would not bring us to be solvent at $450+ per month in water. Oh,
No, that would be the Angels Crossing's obligation per their contract to make that whole.
correct. So since you brought them up, and they are the actual developer that owns up here, even though we keep talking about selling off land we don't own to somebody else.
Correct.
Have you provided Angels Crossing the will serve letter to develop up here as they have asked?
David, you want to take a comment on that one?
I don't know that it has. I know that we're looking into it because there's some questions about what we're able to actually provide given the financial situation. But that's something that we're taking a stab at.
Great. It seems to me that the developer you have in hand is probably better than the developer you don't have at all.
That's not true. The developer that we have currently is like having a developer that we don't have. That would be a truer statement, because the developer that we currently have is paying the same amount as a developer that we don't have, zero.
Can I step in here just a minute? Because the fact of the matter is that Angels Crossing, given that they're not paying any bills whatsoever, and we're having to proceed with foreclosures on these the property for the bonds, so that we can try to move on and get somebody in here who does develop. I think that nothing is stopping Angels Crossing from actually selling the property to another developer themselves and saving the water district a whole lot of headache and a whole lot of money than having to spend our money to have to foreclose on property that they refused to pay, that they said they were going to pay in the contract. Plus, if they want to do something for the residents here, they would be actually, if they cared, in my opinion, they would actually be working towards bringing somebody in and handing the project to somebody else for the little $100,000 that they paid. And so that we don't have to be put through this, because we could have somebody in here a lot quicker if maybe they did that. But instead, they want to continue to, God knows what, not pay and put us through this. So they're actually costing us even more money and more time. So I think that should be a question that should be given back to them. Maybe they can find somebody who'll pay their bills.
So
Julie, when's
basically,
the last time Western Hills Water District sat down with Angels Crossing to discuss the situation and try to help our community out? Is that anywhere on
When they're
record?
not paying their bills?
Oh,
They
so
were
we don't negotiate or talk? There's no
They were-
talks that have been had?
We
Okay,
talked
so-
for how long?
So wait a minute, let me jump in on that. The community, there will be a slew of documents posted to the website shortly. We approved them to be released to the public, and it will show exactly quite a bit of communications that has gone on between the Western Hills Water District and Angels Crossing. So we'll let the community judge for themselves when reading the paperwork. And I think the community will see why it is we're having difficulties. So we'll just let that stuff go out there. It'll be posted shortly. And maybe on that note, let me just let the community know, there will be a letter going out from me tomorrow, inviting Angels Crossing to a meeting on the 24th with all of you. As I told you before, tonight was going to be a night where we produced and gave the consultants the opportunity to give the numbers. Next week's going to be a town hall between all of us, where the community is asking questions, we're getting answers. But the 24th was going to be the day that the board was going to vote. And I think it's better that we get Angels Crossings in here. So that is going to happen. They're going to be officially sent a letter tomorrow. And we are inviting Angels Crossing and their representatives to a kind of a roundtable discussion here on Zoom with the community, with all of these numbers. And they get to explain themselves to the community of why they're not paying their contractual obligations and why they're forcing the community to pay 100% of everything. So we're going to be sitting down with them in a respectful, highly respectful, with proper decorum, an event on the 24th where we're going to allow Angels Crossing a period of time to communicate and to explain to the community why they're not paying their bills and why it's falling on the community to pay their share, and why they're not paying their contractual obligations. So actually, just to let everybody know that that will be happening on the 24th. They are going to be invited to the meeting on the 24th. And then on the 31st, we'll come back in and vote on this.
All right. Gerald and Darlene have been patiently waiting. There you guys go.
Hi. Okay, I got unmuted. So we were just wondering, and I didn't get in early, so once again, I apologize also if this was already covered. But, and is everyone hearing me now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my question is, this was alleged some time ago, I know, by Angels Crossing, and I don't know if this was totally misleading and deceptive, but I would like you to address whether or not, as you're saying, Matt, that, you know, if these price hikes don't take place, that we won't have a community, we'll lose our homes, there will be no value, we'll all have to move. How does it work with the state water board coming in and taking over the water company here? Or is that even an option or possibility that would avoid us losing our homes? Is that something that could possibly happen or would happen? Or I just want you to expound on that, where the state water board is concerned. Do they just consider this totally private so they don't get involved? Or is there any possibility that we would be rescued somehow by them? That's my question.
That is a great question. And you're right, it's been used as a dividing tool. I'm going to have David explain it too, but let me just, there is case law on this where when Stockton went bankrupt, the state did not come in and bail out Stockton. They ended up having to go with a private company to bail themselves out. The state doesn't do that. Now, let's just give the benefit of the doubt. What could happen, I guess, is they could say to the water districts in the area, Western Hills needs help. They have no water. Who would like to sell them water? Well, let's see. We have a $3 million debt to Kern for not paying for our water. So what water district is going to step up and say, sure, we'll sell you water when we don't have water to buy? So it's kind of one of these kind of crazy situations, but as far as I understand, the state does not come in and order anybody to give us water. It's not going to happen. David, you can maybe explain this better than me. That's just my summation of it.
No, I mean, I think the reality is that even if the state or some other organization took over the water district, unless the state has a bunch of free money floating around to subsidize the cost of service that the district incurs is going to be spread amongst the ratepayers, which is exactly what this rate increase proposes. Right. So I don't know that even a state takeover means that the water bills aren't going to go up significantly. That's really all I have to add.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you, Darlene.
Next up, we have Doug. Go ahead, Doug.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're
Yes,
good.
sir.
Yes.
Oh, good. First of all, I want to thank everybody on the board there for the time and energy you put into this. Community ought to be very proud of you. Secondly, a question as to the Marshall Davis well and whether or not there's any revenue stream that could be produced from that would help subsidize it.
So funny you mentioned this. Do you have my house bugged? Doug,
no.
You have my house bugged. No, it's funny you brought that up. Yes, there are some interested parties down in the valley that are interested in purchasing some water from us. And I've talked to Jerry today, and he is going to fire up that well and start taking testings. And there's a lot of different things that are have to be done. Nitrate levels and stuff have to be looked at. But what's going to happen is I think very shortly we're going to be able to start selling some of this water to some interested parties that myself and David have been in contact with. And if that turns out to be good, who knows? It could develop into more possibilities of the farmers out there in the valley. So I don't know how you knew this, but yes, that is something I've been working on just in the last week, and we should know more to come. But right now we're just checking on the well and seeing where we're at and getting it cleaned up, and more to report on in the future. But that could definitely help and would bring some relief to the high bill. Yes.
Gotcha. One other part to that question is, do we know whether or not that well has been being used and water is being sold from it during World's ownership?
I think it did for a certain period of time, to what I understood, but then it stopped. And part of that was, well, I don't want to talk about why, but yes, I believe that for a period of time, water did get sold, but then it stopped. And I'm not going to go into the reasons why.
I think to answer your question, there was 1 year during the drought when Western Hills and I believe it was either Oak Flat or excuse me, or Del Porto entered into an agreement whereby they purchased groundwater. But aside from that, like we're not aware. We don't believe that World sold any water or that Western Hills has been selling that water except for that year.
Okay, thanks, David. Last thing is more or less a comment. People are worried about property values, obviously, with water rate increases. The one thing that is going to be coming somewhere down the road is a road across to San Jose. And when that happens, values on properties will at least double. So that's something to look forward to in the future and a reason to hold on to the properties here. That's my last comment.
Thanks, Doug. I sure hope they build that road, and soon.
So Gerald and Darlene, did they have another question? I see their hands
Yes.
still up. Or
yep, I got them. Oh, there we go.
Okay, sorry, just with Doug's last comment, it sparked a question in my mind. So as you all know, from time to time, at least I know here in our home, we are getting some brown looking water coming through the faucet. So I just want to ask you, and before I ask this question, let me just also thank everyone on the board and Julie, everybody for working so hard to get this normalized and some solutions. We do appreciate your hard work. But is our water at this time considered, and is it safe for drinking and cooking, or would it be where we should be, you know, having alternative water coming in to, you know, bottled water, whatever, based on the numbers where everything is now? When Doug talked about the well getting tested, it just sparked the question in my mind again.
So as far as I know, our water is good. Do you just, this is a personal question, but is it with the hot water or the cold water? Do you notice?
I was going to ask that too, Matt.
Yeah,
She
okay,
muted.
I had muted myself, so I had to get unmuted
Yeah,
again.
is it hot water or cold water?
It can be with both. It's not in, I know it is in one of our bathtubs a lot.
Yeah. So
And
I know this is a little off and a little crazy, but this happened to my wife and I and our family just a couple months ago. We were getting a lot of brown in our water, and it turned out that on the top of our water heater, where the fittings are, they were starting to corrode, and the corrosion was going in. And then when we turned on the hot and the cold, like kind of medium, we were getting brown in there. And then, so we had to replace our hot water tank because of it. So I'm just letting you know that might be an option, but I don't believe we're having any kind of water problems up here because our water is looking perfectly clear. So I would encourage you to maybe check that out.
I will definitely do that, because we do have a water filter system in the home for the whole
we do
house,
too.
which is supposed to clean it. And with it showing brown, it was making me question that. So that may be the case.
Yeah, we had corroded, the fittings were corroded, and then the corrosion went down into the tank. And so then all the water got this reddish brown look. And yeah, our bathtub
Okay.
too. So
We'll check
that's
that
what
out.
it happened to be for us, but I have no idea. I'm just suggestion.
Well,
Darlene, I can tell you that today we actually toured our lab up there to Chris and I both did,
Yep.
and Mark, we actually toured our lab, and I had an extensive conversation with Lizette. She actually takes water samples all day long, and we send our test samples to a lab. I believe it's in Merced. Fresno, thank you. I knew it was south. We send our water samples there. Reports have to go to the state every month. They're due by the 10th of every month to the state of all the results from all of those lab tests. And that if our water was not drinkable, the state would actually come in here and fine us, and they would make us make it drinkable.
Okay.
So, okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
But thanks,
Well,
Matthew. I will definitely check and have the water heater checked. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Yeah, just have a plumber check in general, you know. I've also done my own, and I would encourage everyone to do this. You can buy a pH test kit or a pH meter, and you can buy a TDS test kit on Amazon and test your water, you know, test it out of various faucets. You might find one particular faucet is not as great as the others, but I've always found the water to be nearly neutral pH and very low, like we're talking 100 parts per million TDS, total dissolved solids. So I always feel confident about drinking the water right out of the tap. I have no problems with that. I don't have a home filtration system installed, by the way. That's straight from the district.
All right, so I don't see any more questions. I do want to just, so I know we've been talking about the rate study, but I know our consultants are probably wanting to get going. If there's no more questions on the rate study or anything, then I'm just going to give one last shout out to anybody who wants to make comments on something that has nothing to do with the rate study. Any more on the rate study? Okay, so just remember, if you have questions, send them to Chris. You can call into the office and leave a question for Ashley. These aren't questions that you're wanting Chris to answer or Ashley to answer. These are going to be questions that we're going to collect. And if in the next couple days we can get questions from you all, we will pass those on to our consultants. We will also get our own answers going. And then when we meet at the town hall kind of environment next Wednesday, we will answer those questions first, and then we'll open it up for more questions from folks. Also, I just want to remind you that it's very difficult if you contact us as directors individually and try to get us to talk to you or communicate with you about resolutions and things that we're going to have to vote on. There's things that we can talk about, but then there's other things that you kind of put us in a bind. So just be very respectful to board members that if they say to you, hey, you know, I'd rather leave that question into open session and we want to talk about it because maybe 6 other people have the same question as you, just respect that. I know we can kind of give little answers here and there, but the board has a lot of information. We're working really hard on a lot of different issues. And if you could just pass the questions, we can all then work on getting answers and we can bring these answers into the next meeting. I would just ask that of the community to
That's
please.
well said, Matt. I just want to throw my email out there again. It's Chris Blessing, ChrisBlessing, WHWD @gmail.com, or just send me a message on Nextdoor.
Cool. And Rick and Gabe, anything left? Do you want to sum up or? I'm not hearing Rick.
Yeah, Rick's muted, looks like.
He's good.
He's unmuted.
He's
Okay.
unmuted, but I don't hear him.
I think they're good, or they fell asleep, and that's fair.
No, he's trying to talk.
his
I can see him
AirPods
trying to
turned
talk.
Might be your microphone, Rick.
Nope, still can't
No.
hear you.
Let me unmute him again. Try again, Rick. I think he's got a Zoom client problem, probably.
All right, well, I want to thank Rick and Gabe.
How about
for-
now?
There we
you
go.
go.
We can hear
There
you.
you go.
No, we hear you.
I hear
Technology.
you.
We heard you, Rick.
Yeah,
We hear
you're
you.
good, Rick.
You're good.
Oh,
Rick, we can hear you.
I don't think he
Now
can
he
hear
can't
us.
hear us.
He can't hear us.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My
Yes.
apologies. Just quickly, I appreciate the opportunity to present here tonight, and I think these are a lot of great questions, and I'll be back in a week. So as Matthew said, we'll collect all these questions, and if more come in over the week, because it's a lot of information I presented on these slides, as you think about it over the next week, we'll be happy to address any further questions you have next week. So thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate all your guys' hard work. Gabe, I appreciate it. I don't know if he fell off, but thank you, Gabe, for all your hard work as well.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So is there any other questions not related to the water? Just questions in general? Anything? All right. We did have some questions submitted by the public. The one question was already answered about the Stanislaus Water Board. Did the Western Hills Water District ever file a lien against World for monies owed? The answer is yes. Was Western Hills Water District a party to the sale of DG to AC? No, we are not a party to the sale, but we did have our assignment and assumptions agreement with the debt owed to the water district. So when the transition and all happened, we had our situation involved in that. But as far as their sale, no, we did not. As an entity, did Western Hills Water District release World from their indebtedness to the Western Hills Water District? David, how do you want to answer that? Because I believe all the indebtedness went to Angels Crossing, but
Yeah, we don't really want to get into it, but the assignment agreement would have waived claims against World contingent on fulfillment of the terms of that agreement. But because the agreement never occurred, the position is that the waivers never took place.
okay. And then the fifth question was, does Western Hills Water District have D&O coverage for its current and former directors? I don't know about former directors, but yes, current directors. David, former, if it happens to be while they were on the board, yes, probably.
I don't know the precise terms of the policy, but I suspect that whatever acts that were taken by former directors would be covered under that policy to the extent they're covered in the first place.
All right, so that answers all the questions that were posed by the community. We kind of want to do that each time we have a board meeting. So the questions again that come in, we'll be answering in the next Wednesday meeting. So next, we're going to adjourn. The next adjourned regular meeting will be Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. However, as I said before, we're going to have special meetings March 17th at 6 p.m. It'll be 6 p.m. We're doing it later so all of you can get home from work, feed your kids, feed yourself, and be able to participate. So next Wednesday, March 17th, will be at 6 p.m. will be the open session. Then on March 24th, I believe it will be at 6 p.m. as well. But we'll let you know. And then on March 31st, we will be back probably at our normal schedule, 5 p.m. For the actual rate vote. Matters too late for the agenda. Action items may be added to the agenda upon determination by a majority vote of the board that an emergency exists. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn if there's no other questions. All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Anybody?
I said aye.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, everybody. Good night, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday. Please get your questions to us. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night, Don. You always wave.
Get on.